So we've got our general form written here. And remember we said we talked about a circle yesterday, but we looked at it in standard form, which was this. Correct? So when they give it to us in general form, and then they ask us for the center and the radius, we can't pull the center and the radius from that form. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to take and rewrite it in standard form so that we can say what the center and the radius is. So how are we going to do that? Well, let me give you some ideas. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to group like variables. Which does not mean combine like terms necessarily, okay? Because like variables means they both have an x, but one of them's x squared and one of them's x, and they're both going to have a y, but one of them's y squared and one of them's y, okay? So we're going to group like variables and move constants to the other side.
Are constants just the numbers?
Constant is just a number with no variable. And then we're going to complete the square. So we did completing the square last semester. I know it's been a little bit, but it wasn't too bad once y'all got the hang of it. Do you remember completing the square?
Yes.
Do you remember the words completing the square at least?
Yes.
Oh, wait.
And spaces.
Yes, this is where we're going to add the blanks.
I actually liked completing the square.
And then we fill in the blanks. I shouldn't number these 1 and 2. They should just be probably
I like 1A.
little bullets. Yeah. So we're going to add blanks. And this is where we did that b over 2 and we squared it. Okay. Just to remind you of what completing the square was. So in example 1, it says to write in standard form x squared plus y squared plus 4x minus 4y minus 1 equals 0. So we're going to group our like variables and move our constants to the other side. So what do we need to move to the other side? That negative 1. So we're going to add it over. And I'm going to put all my x's and all my y's together here. So we have x squared plus 4x. Plus we got y squared minus 4y. And it's equal to 1. Now we're going to do completing the square. So let's go ahead and add our blanks. So in this first parenthesis, we're going to have x squared plus 4x plus a blank. Because I want to make that into a perfect square so I can factor it and get that x minus h squared. Okay, plus. In the second parenthesis, we're going to have y squared minus 4y plus a blank. Because I want to make that into a perfect square so I can get that y minus k squared out of it. And this is going to be equal to 1, but we added 2 blanks on the left side, didn't we?
Yes.
So we got to add 2 blanks on the right side here as well. One for the x parenthesis and one for the y parenthesis. So let's go through and let's do our blank. So how do we fill in the blank? B over 2 squared, right? So for this first, the x parenthesis here, what is my b?
4.
The number in front of the x. So 4 divided by 2 squared. So 4 divided by 2 is?
2.
Squared is? And so that's what I'm going to put in this blank here. And because I put it in the first blank here, I'm going to put it in the first blank over here. Now don't forget, guys, when you square something, it's always going to be positive, right? So be careful because some of y'all still mess up when you try to put a negative number in the calculator and square it. So know that that number is always going to be positive. Now, for the y's, we're going to do the same thing. It's b over 2 squared. Now what's in my place of my b?
-4.
The negative 4 over 2 squared. And what's negative 4 over 2?
-4.
Squared, which is positive 4. I just said every time we square it, it's always going to be positive.
I didn't include.
Did it?
All right. All right, so we need to factor this first parenthesis. So we know it's a simple trinomial. So it's going to be x and x. What multiplies a 4 that also adds to 4?
2.
2 and 2. And remember, they should be the same, right?
Yes.
So bring down that first sign. Positive 2 times what kind of 2 gives me a positive 4? Positive. Now, so wait, where else did I see a positive 2 in this problem that we said we could use it as a shortcut? The number right before you squared it, right? So what I could have said was, instead of stressing out trying to factor it, I could have said, okay, well, I know it's going to be something squared. And it's got to be an x because this is my x minus h, right?
Yes.
And then whatever number is right before I squared it goes with x. So it's going to be a
2.
plus 2. I did tell you this before.
Last time.
All right, so then we still have our plus. So let's do that with the second one. Instead of factoring it out, I know it's going to be squared. This is my y minus k, so it's going to have a y. What's going to go inside with that y? The number we had right before we squared it. So minus 2 equals, and what do we have on this side when we put it all together?
Are we not using the x plus 2 twice? Like we're not
That
using that?
x plus 2 times x plus 2 is the x plus
you were
2
just showing
squared.
before you.
I was just showing you if you wanted to factor it, that's how you would get it.
Okay, my bad.
So now tell me, what is my center? Negative 2, positive 2, because remember, when you take them out, you change the sign, right? What is my radius?
9.
It's the square root of 9,
So 3.
which is 3. And he didn't tell me to, but could we graph it, and could we tell domain and range?
Yeah.
All right, good.